Hello and welcome once again to Let's Play Baldur's Gate. This is Policy of Madness. Last time we did the other Cloud Peak Mountains area. We did not find a winter wolf. Really not much of anything happened.
Nothing to it.
We're going to drop off these arrows in our stash.
Whatever you want.
Doesn't that look awesome? That robe. That robe looks awesome.
If you say so.
And actually, I think these might not be sellable. Now that I am thinking about it, the last time I encountered enchanted bolts in Baldur's Gate, I was completely unable to find anybody to buy them. At least as far as I recall. What's a ditch of this too? So, maybe I ought to just throw those on the ground.
Of course.
But, doesn't hurt anything to just let them take up space in the drawer there. The drawer, after all, is of infinite depth. Containers in this game, other than the ones that you carry, of which are none, natively in Baldur's Gate, are bottomless. Every chest, every little hole in the ground where you find a ring is actually a bottomless pit. This time we're going to go to the Gnoll Stronghold.
You have been waylaid by enemies and must defend yourself.
This could be potentially dangerous. I don't have that many spells.
If that's what you want.
If I run out of spells, I can always just leave. There's nothing holding me in these ambushes. Especially when we're talking about a very slow-moving cave bear. But actually, I think we'll be alright. Little free EXP. Not actually expecting much in the way of EXP at the Gnoll Stronghold. Whoops. Because, you know, it's full of gnolls. Alright. But I am looking for some cash. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. Don't really understand the pits.
Whatever you desire.
So, let's see if I can get one of them to come forward. Where are these, half ogres? No, it looks more like an ogrillion.
Stop! You go nowhere. This our bridge. You pay to walk it.
I really like how you can negotiate them down.
Time for some carnage.
Yeah, I guess it's an ogrillion. Wow, he's already badly injured. I guess I'm kind of a badass, aren't I? Come on, smack him. Alright. Let's get that other guy's stuff. Mainly his gloves are what I'm after, of course. They'll be worth some money. Oh, that was good damage, wasn't it? Yeah. Instead of giving them 100 gold or 200 gold, I'll just take all their stuff. Yeah, this thing's not very dangerous. But we still don't take chances. This is a no reload game. You never know when one of these little Zvart things might get lucky. Okay. This is like nighttime music, but it looks like day. Alright, what's in here? I don't remember. Okay. Oh man. I didn't mean to get stuck in the center of them. Like I said before, I really think that they would run. They seem to have no respect for me at all. And I really don't get that, but okay.
Nothing to it.
So there's this video up on YouTube that has been there for a while, but I just recently saw it, of Richard Dawkins at some kind of a, I don't know, a little thing that he did somewhere. I mean, I honestly didn't even pay that much attention to the details of the video. I was just more concerned with what was in it. And he was at some kind of little gathering, and they were doing a Q&A session, and he's asked, get this out first. Okay. He's asked this question, and he honestly gives no indication that he really understands the question. And of course, Richard Dawkins is like a world-class dick. And, I don't think he would even disagree with that. I mean, he knows his own dickishness, but it was very surprising to me how he seemed to just not even grasp why the question was important. And the question went kind of like this. It was asking, it was pointing out that the basic scientific skeptical paradigm involves the principle that you don't believe something until there's evidence for it of some kind. And the question was, what evidence do we have that that paradigm is the right one? Shouldn't we require some evidence for it before we adopt it? You know, not after the fact, but before we adopt it. And Richard Dawkins' response was to quote an XKCD comic. And XKCD is a really hilarious and very smart and comic, but it's not a philosophical statement. At least this particular comic wasn't. Sometimes it does have some philosophy in it. And this tome is like hella heavy. I mean, look at this. It's like 15 pounds. And I've been thinking about what I'm going to do with this, and the difference between Charisma of 10 and Charisma of 11 is functionally 0. And in Baldur's Gate 2, I'll be able to get a, you know, that Charisma ring for my Charisma needing purposes almost right off the bat. So I actually think that this is going to be vendor trash. Oops. So he's asked this question, why don't we demand evidence? I guess I should probably sleep in here.
What would you like?
Why don't we demand evidence that this paradigm is the correct one before we adopt it? From a philosophical standpoint, that's actually an interesting question. Because yeah, there's more to this cave. I don't think I want to go over there yet. I think there's a carrion crawler in there, isn't there? It's amazing how they just absolutely can't hit me. Okay. Reset my alacrity. Wake up this carrion crawler that I'm 90% sure is here. Carrion crawlers are, of course, really dangerous if they catch you. They're kind of like bears and vampire wolves. Closer to vampire wolves, I think, because they have that hold attack. From a philosophical standpoint, we don't usually ask principles, ideas, paradigms to prove themselves, because that's a major philosophical error. That's something that's done so often, it has its own name. It's begging the question, which has a very different the phrase begging the question has a very different meaning in vernacular English. And it means, you know, given this, whatever. Given this whatever, you know, that begs the question, meaning that demands that we ask this question. And, of course, that's not the original meaning of that term. Begging the question just means circular reasoning. It means using your conclusion, or the conclusion that you want to reach, as one of your premises. I ran into this in a macroeconomic theory. I can't recall exactly the name of it. It's a supply side theory that came about in the 70s in response to 70s, I think it was 70s, in response to Keynesian economics, which is just very philosophically offensive to a lot of people, even though it works pretty well. I think I need a rest here. Yeah, you don't frighten me. So there was a supply side theory, and it was, when I saw the rationale for it, it was like, holy God, are you serious? Because it starts out as an equation. Economic ideas typically involve math. Sometimes complicated math, sometimes really non-complicated math, but, you know, math. Because this shit is claiming to be scientific in some way. So the premise, the opening equation, summarized a macroeconomic situation, like with the United States economy, for example. And it takes all of the various sectors of the economy, and it puts them all into an equation. And this particular one put supply in on one side and economic activity on the other, and put everything that wasn't supply that affects the economy in any way into this catch-all variable A. And A represents pretty much everything that's not supply. It represents technology, changes in technology, like the development of the internet would fall under that variable A. And you know, pretty much everything that affects the economy that is not easy to quantify falls under this. I called it a black box, because you don't really know what's in there. Okay, and then the equation goes through a lot of mathematical hijinks, essentially. And then on the other side, at the very end, it concludes that supply is the only thing that matters. And it's a really obvious when you take the starting equation, which is your premise, and you just you know, delete all of the mathematical operations that you perform on it and just put it up next to the conclusion, and it's dead obvious that it's begging the question. You started out with the premise that supply is the only thing that matters, and what came out the other side was, surprise, supply is the only thing that matters. So it's just an example of circular reasoning. When your conclusion is included in your premise or premises, as opposed to your premises, you know, containing independent information, and you reach the conclusion logically. It's begging the question. It's circular reasoning. It's one of the reasons why the most theist philosophers actually reject the idea that morality is divine, really. Because if you assume that what is good is anything that God commands, or that God is, then you reduce the statement God is good to, you know, God is God, which is completely meaningless. That's a completely meaningless statement. And when you reduce your divinity's goodness to complete meaninglessness, then that's not very satisfying for most people. And so philosophers who try to justify or come up with an origin of morality typically do not rely on, well, because God said so. Because that actually winds you up in a place that you don't want to be. If you're a theist, you really don't want to say, well, God is God and that's all there is. And, you know, the whole of morality is based on a tautology. So, begging the question is usually not considered to be a very useful philosophical exercise. In fact, it's a fallacy. It's considered to be a fallacy. But in this instance, it's kind of an interesting question, because it's a fallacy because we assume that an idea can always prove itself, okay? You assume that the reason why begging the question is pointless is because, you know, a philosophical statement ought to be able to prove itself. I mean, but in this case, what the guy was asking is it even possible to beg the question in this case? Because if you have a premise or some kind of philosophical statement, and it can't even prove itself, that's a pretty strong statement, you know, to say, well, you can't even prove yourself. You can't even create that, you know, God is God tautology with your whatever you're talking about. And Richard Dawkins actually gave no indication that he understood the meaning of this question, let alone the significance of it. And he just responded with this really flippant, you know, it works, bitches, response. Well, I'm sure that he thought maybe he was being clever and awesome, but, you know, it works is actually not even a very good explanation in science. Science doesn't even like that, to use that. And of course the reason is that it's not very satisfying in either a philosophical or a scientific sense. To simply say, well, you know, it works because it works. It's true because it's true. And so, from a scientific standpoint, you definitely want your, whatever you're talking about, your theory or what have you, to work. And if it doesn't work, that's a serious problem. Like a serious problem. But just the bare fact that it does work isn't good enough. I don't know if I want to go up here yet. I think I want to rest first. Alright, they didn't see me. I saw you! Flaming death. Actually, it didn't flame. Not a big fan of fireball. I will not be taking fireball as a spell pick. I think there's some more down here in there. No? And I also have to say I don't understand these pits. Because you can just walk right in and out of them. You know. So, in the opening cinematic, you know, we saw this, you know, looking down in the pit and it's like full of skeletons and half-rotted bodies and shit, but I mean, why? You can just walk right out. The only thing keeping you in there is the gnolls. You know, I assume the gnolls would try to kill you if you just tried to just walk out. But then why even have a pit? Why not just have like a little cage or something? Same effect. The pit is supposed to be some kind of terrible punishment or something. I don't know. I don't get it. Honestly, I just don't get it. So, I mean, we like the theory of relativity, and it does work, okay? But we don't like it because it works. We know that it's, you know, at least semi-valid because it works, but we like it because it has an explanation for why it works. Not just it works. It works is not very good even from a scientific standpoint. I wonder how many's up there. I don't think I want to do that. There's probably more, but I don't want to risk having a spell trap or a skull trap just laying around. Because that can be terrible. Yeah, there's a pile of them. Wow, how many did I get? At least 3. Near death. See if I can pelt him with one. Alright. If the only argument in favor of the theory of relativity was it works, then that's not very scientific. It's actually not scientific in the slightest. We like relativity because it gives us a good explanation for why it works. And good framework for oh man, that did a lot of damage to a lot of people. Look at that. They're all going to be after me now. See if we can put up another skull trap here. Alright. Oh, there's the chieftain. But I can get him before he approaches me. Why are they coming after me? Why aren't they running terrified of me? I don't understand. Getting pretty low on spells, actually. And if I sleep here, I know I'm going to get ambushed by gnolls. If I sleep down here, I may not. I've already done it once. Okay. If you had, if you could go back in time, and you could talk to the, like, ancient Aztecs, for example, and ask them, why does sacrifice figure so highly in your religious calendar? And they might tell you, I mean, this is the story at least, I don't even know if it's true, but I'm gonna assume it's true. And they would tell you, well, it's because, you know, the gods demand sacrifice, and if we don't, then the seasons won't change, and the sun won't come up. And you'd say, if you were smart and had morals, you might say, but it's terrible that you're sacrificing all these animals and all of these children and all these adults. And how do you know that this is necessary for any of those things? And they would tell you, well, it works, doesn't it? The sun came up this morning. Here's Dinah here. We're just going to leave her here. She has nothing we want. Just want to explore these little bits here. Make them explored. Even though I can't explore anywhere close to the entire map here. I'll get as much of it as I can. These ancient Mesoamericans might say, well, it works, doesn't it? You know, it works, bitches. The sun came up, didn't it? The sun came up, the spring came, it's not eternal winter. You know, it works, right? So that XKCD comic is really funny, and XKCD in general is a really smart comic. Although there have been one or two where I just have to wonder what the hell he was thinking, but you know, nothing's perfect. But that particular comic is not exactly a philosophical treatise. It's not intended to be one. And using it to answer a philosophical question is a mistake, I think. And I'm not even sure that Richard Dawkins comprehended the question, what exactly he was being asked. I mean, he was being asked, is it even possible to beg the question here? Which is absolutely fascinating, actually. It's kind of interesting to think about. So, yeah, he's, of course, also a world-class dick, like I said before. He's a major dick to practically everyone. He's famous for his dickishness to theists, of course. And I'm not even sure that's fair. I am myself an atheist, and so I kind of understand where he's coming from. And there are a lot of theists out there who are kind of anti-thought, almost. But to paint them all with the same brush is really a mistake. The major questions, for example, about the existence of God have always been brought up by
If
theists.
that's what
The problem of evil, for example, was thought of by theists long before anyone thought of Richard Dawkins. And the reason for that, of course, is that
whatever you desire.
throughout history, there have just been more theists than atheists, just as a number of, human beings on Earth. And so there have been more theist philosophers. And also because theists are definitely more interested in thinking about whether or not God exists, whereas atheists are very tempted, and I absolutely comprehend this temptation because I had it myself. The temptation
Is that all?
is to say, why in the hell are we even arguing about this?
Business has been poor, what with the iron shortage and all.
Why are we thinking even about God? God doesn't exist. We have no reason to think he exists, so why are we wasting our time with this? So, I understand the urge, but that doesn't really get you anywhere. That's not a very satisfying... position at all. To say, well, just basically conceding the ground. Oh, I can't sell those here. Oh, he won't buy it. Why not? Look how much it's worth. He won't buy my familiar either. I'm gonna find somebody who's gonna buy this motherfucker.
Nothing to it.
I wonder if Palantir will buy it. We're gonna try. So throughout history, atheists
I could really use some rest.
tend not to put a lot of thought into this. That's not true. Of course there have been atheists. David Hume was an atheist, and he was a very famous philosopher.
Whatever you
Very smart guy. And he put some thought into this. But the number of atheist philosophers who have even cared about this question is low, both because the number of atheists is low, and the number of atheist philosophers is therefore even lower. And atheist philosophers may not always be interested in this question because, why? But to say that all theists are, unthinking
Just
whatevers, like Richard Dawkins does,
Why do I live in such a pissant town?
is a big mistake. Oh look, he'll buy it. Awesome. Oh, that's a lot of money. Okay. And actually, he has some things here that I should have bought when I had those French spells up. But, the price is not going to be too significantly higher. I'm gonna need those. How much will he give me for this? 150. Does he have any? No, there's no depreciation on that. Okay. Cold resistance, he has one of those. I can tell it's depreciation. Okay. And this is bothering me. I'm gonna have to clear out this black here. I'm pretty sure his flesh golems are friendly now that I've talked to him. Yeah. This unexploredness is just, it's horrible. Okay. So, theists have spent a lot of time trying to prove the existence of God,
What would you like?
but at the same time they've been thinking about all the reasons why that's difficult to do in ways that atheists just completely concede the argument. But I think that's pretty much all I wanted to do this time. Been rambling quite a bit. But the Gnoll Stronghold really was the only thing that I wanted to do because I wanted the cash from it. And I've done that, so... Oops. I think we'll stop that here, and next time I have no idea what I'll be talking about, but I'll be doing something else. I already know where I'm going next. Later.